welcome to part 5. I have a really fresh example today of this process, and I hope this analogy works for you and that you can apply it in a way that will suit you. So recently I've been trying to improve the time of my 5K. And I did the Couch to 5K in 2018, so just before I got pregnant with Luna. About 6 months before, I really got back into running and yet didn't really know where to start. And I just needed a bit of focus, a bit of reassurance, a bit of a plan, I guess. And so I began with the 5K. And it was tough. It was really tough in the beginning because I noticed that I am a bit of a maverick sometimes. Not in, oh God, I hate it when people describe themselves in those sorts of ways. But like, I was like, oh, but this is not going to work for me. Really? Like, come on. Week 1, I can barely put one foot in front of the other. You're going to tell me that I can run 5K in 9 weeks? Really? Anyway, as with most things, it turns out it was true. I could do that. And over time, I managed to run more and build up that mileage, that K. And I got to a point where at the beginning of 2021, I ran my first half marathon on my own. Yeah, on my own. Like, it wasn't even one of those organized events. I ran it on my own, and it was when lots of things were in lockdown. It was really quiet. It was really eerie around the London streets, but yeah, it was really powerful. Actually, it was really insightful, and I loved it. Then other stuff kind of got in the way, so I fell off the running thing a little bit. Anyway, I got it back, and of course, it's that moment where with many of our things, we think we never can do it again. Like, I used to do it 2 years ago, but I've forgotten everything. Like, no, it's just going to take a bit of time, a bit of effort, a bit of love, a bit of focus, etc. I've now got to this point where I'm like, okay, I'm running regularly again. Let's see where my 5K was at. And when I timed it for the first time, so I worked out a route that was 5K, and it makes sense, and it's one of those where you can run like both ways a bit. And I know that sounds like a random thing, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's like, yeah, it's going to work one way but not the other. And I got my time and was like, oh, I'm much slower than I thought I was. So over the last few weeks, I've been trying to work on this moment, and I notice what my speed is, what my pace is per K. So I'll sometimes look at my watch and I might go, great, I'm on track. Oh, I'm going a bit quicker than I thought I would. And so K1 or kilometer 1, 2 and 3 are usually quite a lick. Like, I'm doing this. Yes. And usually at that point where I'm like, I am over halfway now. I'm over halfway. I'm doing a good time. I'm probably on an improvement on last time that I did this. And there's something that happens at about 3.5K to 4.5K, where I go into a weird place in my mind where I say, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I've gone too quick on this. Maybe the first 3 were just a fluke. Maybe I'm not going to make it. Maybe I'm too tired. Actually, my breath, it feels heavy, all of the stuff. Because what's happening there is I go into self-sabotage. I go into self-doubt. I go into disbelief. I convince myself of a different story. And this is a really important situation that shows up all of the time in business, in how we are operating in new habits. So you might be somebody who goes, right, I'm going to be a morning person. I'm going to be a morning person. Look at me being a morning person. Monday, Tuesday, the alarm goes off. You're like, I am a morning person. It's working out really well for me. And then about Wednesday, you'd be like, I just can't do this. What is this? This waking up early on a Wednesday. And you might feel the same on a Thursday. But then by the time Friday comes, if you can do it, if you can work with that and work through it, by the time Friday comes, you will have that streak of like, oh, I've done this for 5 days. I am a morning person. I've shifted this in my mind. You might be working on a money goal. So again, that might be something that you get halfway through the month and you're like, yeah, I had a good few couple of weeks, but I don't think I'm going to make my goal. I don't think I'm going to get there. I think I've spoken to everybody that I was going to, and I just have to believe that it's probably not going to happen for me. The thing is, when you get really familiar with that voice that might come up between 50 and 80% of whatever it is that you're thinking of doing, if you can get to know that voice, and if you can get to make friends with it, you're going to make progress. Now, that's not to say that yesterday when I did that 5K and I had a really good 1, 2, and 3, and the fact that I now know how to deal with that voice that comes up again and again, and I recognize it and I recognize it fast, that's not to say that I did an exceptional time. I beat the time from the week before, but only by a few seconds. It still was a struggle, that last part of the race in my head, the race that I was doing, my goal that I set for myself. So what I want to say is, making change can bring up all your stuff sometimes. Introducing a new habit can bring you to a situation that maybe you weren't ready to face, or old stories might come to the surface. But my invitation for you simply is to listen to them and to have a conversation with them. And one thing that I've recognized over the last few weeks is that quite often it's the same old stories again and again. And sometimes they're dressed up in different outfits or different phrases or things like that. And I've now noticed what I need to do. One of the things that I now do is, say I'm listening to a podcast on Ks 1, 2, and 3. I know once I've gone past that halfway and then 3 mark, that's when I switch to music. Because that music gives me that energy, especially if it's something uplifting, something I like to listen to. That is the thing that takes me where I need to go next. And I've often found this when I've been making moves in my business or in my life, or doing one of the goals when we were moving into this house. There will always be somebody in the corner who's like, yeah, that's just never going to work, is it? Like, I tried that and it didn't work for me. And oh, you'll be lucky if you follow through with that, in this, all of that negativity. And I have learned over the years that I have to switch that. Sometimes I've taken myself out of rooms of conversations like, I'm so sorry, I'm just going to have to go a sec. I just need to make a phone call. I've made up an excuse because I need to and I want to protect my energy through those moments. So to break down that process, notice where you're up to right now in terms of making these moves, making these shifts, and actually making progress. Secondly, notice how well you're doing. So those first 3 for me, I'm like, yes, I am doing it. I'm not even like, oh gosh, the first, I have to kind of work up to it. I am straight out and I'm finding it easier even to leave the house. So all of that I'm acknowledging. The next thing I would say is really acknowledge what is happening. What are those voices? What are those old stories? And write them down. Welcome them in. Come and sit down. Like, are you going to, you're part of your brain. Are you going to tell me that I can't do this? Are you going to tell me that I shouldn't do this? Are you going to tell me that people like me don't do X, Y, and Z? And ask yourself if they're true or not. Almost bring them to the table and make them make their stand. Yeah, that's a juicy one. And finally, notice that it's going to sometimes take some time. It's going to take some time to see the progression, and it might not happen as quickly as you want it to. But that's not to say it's not happening, because it is. Each day, each minute, each hour, you are making moves to what it is that you want. And it's a dial. It's you turning up the brightness. And there will be some days where you can like, let's go all the way up. I want the whole picture. I'm living my life. I'm living my dream. And there's going to be some days where you're like, I can only just turn a little bit up today because that's all I can manage. Great. Meet yourself where you are. I can hear a siren. I'm going to go now because otherwise it's going to ruin this video. I'm sending lots of love. Okay, bye.